When I first moved into apartment 3C, I felt a sense of relief that I hadn't felt in years. It was cheap, modest, slightly outdated, and always carried the smell of overcooked rice and damp tile, but it was mine. After years of couch surfing, bad roommates, and living with relatives who constantly asked when I was going to get it together, I finally had a space that was entirely mine. The first few weeks were uneventful. I unpacked slowly, went to work, binge-watched old horror movies on my little couch, and fell asleep to the hum of traffic and occasional sirens from a few blocks away. It was peaceful. Quiet. A little lonely, sure, but I liked the silence. And maybe that's why I didn't notice the signs right away. It started small. A spoon would go missing. A towel would be damp when I hadn't used it. Once, I came home to find my toothpaste cap off and just knew I hadn't left it like that. I chalked it all up to absent-mindedness. I told myself I was still adjusting. Then I found the note. It was a post-it. Bright yellow. Stuck to the fridge. Don't eat my leftovers. D. I stared at it for a long time, trying to understand what I was looking at. I don't know anyone named D. I hadn't had guests over. I don't even like leftovers. I peeled the note off and threw it away, telling myself it must have come from something I bought used. The fridge, maybe? A leftover from the last tenant? But I knew that wasn't right. A week later, I found another one. This time on the bathroom mirror. Please replace the shampoo when you use the last of it. D. My stomach turned. I hadn't used the last of the shampoo. I hadn't even used that brand at all. That night, I checked every lock. I pushed a chair under the doorknob, like I used to do as a kid. I barely slept. The next day, I confronted the landlord. He looked me up and down, clearly thinking I was crazy. You sure you're not sleepwalking or something? I'm sure, I snapped. Have the locks been changed? Is it possible someone else still has a key? He shrugged. Could be. It's an old place. Keys get lost. People make copies. Not helpful. That evening, I bought a chain lock and installed it myself. 3 nights later, I heard footsteps. I woke around 3 a.m. to a creaking floorboard. Not from above. From inside the apartment. My heart stopped. I held my breath. Another step. Then nothing. I stayed perfectly still, listening. Eventually, I convinced myself it had been a dream. I dozed off around 5. In the morning, the chain lock was undone. Still dangling, swaying slightly like someone had only just closed the door. That was the moment I knew I wasn't alone. I didn't go to work. I tore the apartment apart. I checked under the bed, inside the closets, behind the washer. Nothing. But when I opened the hall closet and pulled aside an old stack of boxes, I found something. A hole. Not just a hole, a tunnel. Maybe 2 feet wide, carved crudely into the drywall, like someone had kicked through with both feet and wriggled inside. I felt a draft. There was empty space behind the wall. I grabbed a flashlight and peered in. Inside was a sleeping bag, a stack of protein bar wrappers, a cheap lantern, and a notebook. I pulled it out, careful not to make a sound. The first page had neat handwriting. Rules for co-living, a draft, not final. Respect common areas. Don't use the other person's food without asking. Avoid making noise between 2 a.m. and 5 a.m. No guests unless discussed first. The rest was filled with observations. Not his observations. Mine. Doesn't lock up consistently. Gets home around 6:30. Watches horror movies. Talks in sleep. Dreams about drowning. That last one hit like a punch. I do have that dream. Repeatedly. I called the police. They searched the walls, the building, everything. They found old crawl spaces from the original construction, unused, forgotten. Easy for someone small and patient to crawl through. But no sign of the intruder. He was gone. The officer said it was probably a homeless squatter. Someone who slipped in when the apartment was vacant and just stayed. They didn't seem too concerned. Changed the locks. Told me to call if I saw anything else. That night, I didn't sleep. Around 2:15, I heard it again. Step. Step. Creak. I held my breath. The sound came from the ceiling this time. Right above my bed. The next morning, I checked the attic access panel. Nails had been removed and carefully replaced. I moved out that afternoon. 3 months later, I got a letter in the mail. No return address. Inside was a single post-it. Thanks for your hospitality. Hope your new roommates chill. D. I live with a friend now. The apartment is smaller, louder, more expensive. But at least the only footsteps I hear are accounted for. We moved into the Edge house when I was 11. That's what the locals called it, a squat, square-shaped bungalow sitting on the last developed street before the wilderness swallowed the map. It wasn't remote, not in the traditional sense. There were neighbors, maybe a dozen houses, and a 2-lane road that wound back toward town. But behind our backyard stretched miles of forest. And no one went into it. The previous owner had put up a 6-foot wooden fence, not for privacy, but protection. He told my dad at closing, half-jokingly, "You hear things back there sometimes. Best to leave it alone." My brother Sam and I thought it was amazing. Free wilderness. Real adventure. We were kids raised on comic books and reruns of survival shows. We had our own universe waiting just past the fence. The first week, we hacked a hole in the boards and started exploring. At first, it was all dirt trails, thick underbrush, fallen trees, and birds that seemed too quiet. The farther we went, the colder it got. It didn't make sense, even in summer, the forest felt several degrees cooler than the yard. No sun broke through the canopy. Everything was gray-green and still. Then, one afternoon, Sam ran into the kitchen with dirt on his hands and panic in his eyes. "You have to come. Now. Bring a flashlight." "It's 3 in the afternoon," I said, but grabbed it anyway. We pushed deeper than usual, past a creek bed and a fallen pine that marked our self-made border. After 10 minutes of uphill climbing, we hit the clearing. It wasn't natural. The trees circled it too perfectly. In the center stood a door. Just a door. No frame. No wall. Not propped up or nailed down. Just, standing there, balanced impossibly on its bottom edge. It was white, peeling paint, with a brass handle and faint carvings at the corners. It looked like it belonged in an old Victorian house. "I didn't touch it," Sam said. "But it's real. It doesn't blow over or anything." We circled it, poked it, even knocked. Nothing happened. "Do you think it opens?" "It shouldn't be here at all." That night, I dreamt of it. I stood in front of the door, alone, moonlight glowing behind it. It was open a crack. Something was watching me through the gap. The shape had no eyes, no face, just suggestion, long limbs and impossible joints. Then came the sound. Knock. 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 I woke up cold, the blanket on the floor. Sam had the same dream. We said nothing to our parents. How could we? We stayed away. A week passed. Then 2. Then Sam went missing. It was a Saturday. He left with our dog, Buster, to go exploring, and never came back. The dog returned 2 hours later, alone, paw bleeding. The police searched for a week. Dogs. Drones. Volunteers. They found nothing. I told them about the door. They looked at me like I was broken. That night, I woke at 2:17 a.m. Knock. 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 Not a dream. It came from the backyard. I looked outside. Nothing. Just trees. The next night, same time. Knock. 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 I asked my dad if he heard it. He didn't answer. But the next day, he nailed shut the gap in the fence. We moved in the spring. Now I'm 30. I still dream of the door. Still hear the knocking. Sometimes, when I walk past dense woods, I swear I feel something watching me. Waiting for me to come back. When I was a kid, my grandmother used to cover all the mirrors in her house at night. Every evening, like clockwork, she'd drape old lace cloths and towels over every piece of glass, bathroom mirrors, hallway decor, even the front of the microwave. Mirrors are windows after midnight, she'd whisper to me like it was a bedtime story. And some things are always watching. I thought it was an old-world superstition. One of those weird grandma things. Creepy, sure, but not dangerous. Now, years later, I wish I had listened more carefully. It started with the new apartment. Nothing dramatic, just a modest studio with a kitchenette, a single closet, an ugly beige carpet that probably hadn't been cleaned in decades. It was mine, though. My first real space. I furnished it slowly, mostly cheap IKEA pieces and second-hand finds, and picked up a tall mirror from Target to go in the bedroom corner. It was just glass. Nothing special. No ornate frame, no antique charm. Just a mirror. The first time something felt off was maybe 3 weeks in. I was brushing my teeth late one night and glanced into the bedroom through the open door. The mirror caught my reflection at a sharp angle, just my shoulder and a sliver of my jawline. But my reflection wasn't brushing its teeth. It just stood there. Still. Watching. Then, 2 seconds later, it caught up, like a delayed video feed. I froze. My mind tried to logic its way out. Bad lighting. Blurry peripheral vision. I hadn't really seen what I thought I did. But once you see the glitch, you start noticing the pattern. Every night after that, little things happened. The reflection would blink out of sync. Or hold eye contact too long. Sometimes, I'd smile out of habit when I walked by, and it wouldn't smile back. Once, it smirked first. I stopped looking into it directly. I'd avoid mirrors completely when I could. I stopped taking selfies. I'd cover the mirror with an old sheet at night, just like my grandmother used to do. But it wasn't enough. Soon, it started appearing in other mirrors. My bathroom. The mirrored elevator at work. Store windows at the mall. It would be subtle, but always off. And always watching me. I asked friends. No one noticed anything strange. My coworker said I looked tired. Maybe too much caffeine, he joked. I even set up my phone to record me while I stood in front of the mirror for 10 full minutes, moving my arms, tilting my head, blinking randomly. Playback looked normal. But I knew. When I blinked during filming, I remembered my reflection had stared. And smiled. The moment that truly broke me came one night around 2 a.m. I was half asleep, stumbling into the bathroom. I didn't even turn on the light, just leaned over the sink and splashed cold water on my face. I looked up at the dark mirror. And she winked. My stomach dropped. My own face. My own eyes. But she winked first. I hadn't moved at all. I turned on the light. The reflection was still smiling. I screamed and backed out of the room. That night, I smashed the target mirror to pieces. I gathered every shard into a garbage bag and tossed it in the dumpster. But something about the glass clung to me. I started seeing her. Not just in reflections, in real life. At the coffee shop, I spotted her sitting 2 tables away, sipping tea and staring at me over the rim of the cup. At the train station, she stood behind the crowd on the platform, hands in her coat pockets, smiling softly. At night, I'd see her standing under the street lamp outside my apartment building. Still. Watching. Every time I blinked, she'd disappear. But every time I turned away, I'd feel her watching. Then the dreams began. I'd be walking through a corridor lined with mirrors, hundreds, maybe thousands of them. Each mirror showed me, but not me. They were versions. Some weeping. Some bleeding. One laughing uncontrollably, mouth stretched far too wide. And behind them all, in the reflections of those reflections, she stood. Calm. Still. Patient. Every night, the hallway got shorter. Every morning, my own reflection got stranger. There was a moment, maybe 2 weeks ago, when I caught my reflection blinking when my eyes were open. Just for a split second. But it was real. I wasn't imagining it anymore. Then I heard the knock. Not at the door. At the mirror. A sharp, deliberate tap. I turned, heart pounding, and saw her standing inside. Not just a reflection, present. Like the glass was foggy between us. Like she was pressing against it. She raised a hand and touched the inside of the mirror. My body didn't move. But I felt the cold on my cheek. I screamed, knocking over a lamp. The glass shimmered for a moment, like water. Her smile widened. Then she blinked. That's when I remembered what Grandma always said. Don't break the glass. It weakens the barrier. Too late. I had shattered the only thing keeping her in. From then on, she was everywhere. Behind people. In reflections. In windows. In places where there shouldn't have been mirrors. She was no longer mimicking. She was learning. And 2 nights ago, she came through. It was just after midnight. I was lying awake, staring at the ceiling, when I heard the soft sound of glass creaking. Not shattering, bending. I sat up. The bathroom door was open. The mirror glowed faintly, like something pulsing behind it. Then she stepped out. First her hand, delicate and pale. Then her arm. Her face, identical to mine but wrong. Slightly too symmetrical. Skin too smooth. Expression too calm. Like a wax figure trying to remember how to move. Her knees bent backward when she crawled out. Her head jerked unnaturally when she stood. Her smile never wavered. I ran. I slept in my car, miles away. When I returned the next morning, the mirror was clean. The apartment untouched. But every reflective surface was gone. Even the microwave door. Now, she's just out there. Somewhere. Watching me from places I can't see. Waiting for another mirror. Another window. I haven't used a mirror in over a week. I brush my teeth in the dark. I avoid puddles. I keep my phone camera turned off. But sometimes, I still see her. In the shimmer of a bus window. In the flicker of a turned-off TV. In the screen of someone else's phone when I pass on the street. And she always looks happy. Like she's getting used to the outside. And I don't think she wants to go back.